All right, we are back now with the recalibration of the interview due to a timing conflict, and by timing conflict, I mean I just didn't check the schedule. So we were back at DC. You had just talked about the situation with Scott Fairlin, and all the egregious BS that you guys went through, quite frankly, at the DC jail. And you, pre-trial, you were at DC jail the entire time, correct? That's where you served your whole pre-sentence, or were you at other facilities?
So I was picked up, basically turned myself in Arkansas, and I went to the sheriff's office in Pulaski County, Arkansas. Was housed there. Went to Oklahoma City. Spent, I think, a total of maybe like 5 weeks being jumped around to there. Oh, I did end up, I forgot, in Tennessee for a little bit also. So I probably spent like 7 weeks actually, and then ultimately from there went to the DC, which I spent 40 months in detention before I had my actual day of court. So yeah, I spent years, almost, we'll say close to a year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, in DC,
yeah, man, I
which is
can't.
crazy.
Because I think I was only there probably approximately about 3 months after trial, before sentencing, and then shortly after sentencing when I was designated. But I can't imagine. Sometimes I look back and I'm kind of grateful for the diesel therapy, because they had me at about 16 facilities in 17 months, or 14 facilities in 16 months before trial. So at least it was a new thing, but that traveling does suck. You never get to settle in. Peter, I'm going to ask you a straight up question. Did you go to January 6th to overthrow the government?
Absolutely not. Nothing of the sort would had it ever
It's
really
hard,
crossed my mind.
it's hard to ask the question with a straight face, although I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I could just to even believe, if you have any kind of, I would think, intelligence or anything at all, that question is just simply it's comical that it gets asked. But I would think that if you were going to show up to do something like that, you would definitely show up, I think, armed to the gills.
Yeah,
There would be
I was debating
so
whether
many
that was going to be my
weapons
next
and
question.
yeah, and I just I have a hard time believing that people could take that serious in any capacity, and that narrative and how people would buy into it. It's just so it's crazy. We definitely weren't dressed. If anything, I tell everyone, to me it was like the biggest family reunion, but everybody was a stranger. It was just absolutely it was very peaceful and nice, very warm, good conversations, lots of debates, so much diversity and variety. But I never got the sense that there was anyone or heard anything negative, like overthrowing the government or anything to that nature, to where I was uncomfortable in any capacity. So it never occurred to me that could even happen there. So, but no.
Yeah, it's just it's insane. But it's indicative of how the mainstream media has always acted. But I think that this was exacerbated to the level unlike we've ever seen before, as far as false narratives. Because the dangerous thing is how we were treated in prison, because we were labeled as domestic terrorists, and people need to really let that sink in for a second. To have that stigmata put over you while you're serving time in the Department of Corrections, that elevates your status as just a prisoner. You're no longer just a prisoner. When you're sent to prison, the punishment is being away from your family, being locked in a cell, eating crappy food, being told when you can go outside, being told when you have to go to sleep, when you have to wake up. That's your punishment. But the J6ers, because of the label domestic terrorist, they would put us through extra steps. They censored our mail, our phone calls, our visitation. They treated us as the same way that they would treat someone from ISIS, and we're American citizens. And that's the dangerous part. Did you experience anything like that where, there was one set of rules for inmates, but J6ers, they were treated differently?
Oh, absolutely. And it's when you say what you experienced on that, so I was there from the get-go. The policies and everything, they were just creating them as they went. And they withheld as much as far like our phone, no visitation, no seeing your attorneys, none of that. They literally deprived us of basic due process, and that right now is a big thing. They're wanting to give individuals who sneak into this country due process. But here you had Americans, most of which had no criminal records, literally being treated as they were convicted of being domestic terrorists, but yet we weren't charged at it. And we were just supposed to be handled completely different, but yet we were thrown in solitary confinement. We were deprived of basic civil rights, basic norms of church. Also, the male being able to communicate again with your family, see your family, heck, just being afforded bond. We didn't get anything that was normal. They literally changed everything, and a lot of that I think comes from the fact that the Patriot Act stripped us of our constitutional rights. And it's never been repealed. It's not going to be, but that would be a good start actually to correct some of the injustices that are being done. But see, most of the people in America don't really understand truly at how dangerous this is, at what government and how it operates. It doesn't honor the Constitution. The court systems simply do not operate like you think and are told they do. They do whatever they want. You simply you have to ask the prosecution pretty much in the district of what evidence you can use in your own case, and they tell you then that you can and you can't. They will tell you that you can't use that as a defense of like a third party or this or that. You can't use that defense. You can't do this, and that shocked me. The other thing was too is they'll lie in open court. They will use information in videos and audios that they fabricate, and they won't tell grand juries that this is not the original. This has been edited. We've removed agents and assets out of these, and we've added a different audio. And they did that kind of stuff, and then literally detained people all over the United States. And they were very they chose and made up a lot of information and used it to get us indicted. That's criminal also, and none of that has ever been answered for. And then the treatment that we got, literally as detainees, being treated like we were terrorists. When they moved us into a compound, they literally would shut down the entire compound. And this happened to me in 2 different institutions before I got to DC even. And the warden or the director of the compound would escort me with a dozen officers from, my unit to like to the hospital or to the infirmary or to, have a conversation with my lawyer at one point before I got to DC. I was treated like that. And again, I'm just obviously just a detainee, not convicted or anything like that. But it was things like that. And it was specifically because of being deemed a terrorist or an insurrectionist. And I was told verbally by a director in Oklahoma City that I was the one of 2 people in the institution. And then he housed me overnight with this individual. We shared a cell in a what would you call it, a shoe, for our own protection because we were terrorists. Like it just shocked me at that point. It really, that was one of those moments where I was like, this has got to be the most, this can't be real. But it really, that shook me to the core. But it was little things like that, and then it just amplifies as time goes on. And I really, when that happened to me, at that very moment, after I got to thinking about it, I thought, there's going to be no easy road at this point. Life is going to be pretty much over because the government wants me to be destroyed. And ultimately, that did materialize. But to see it happen to so many people was really interesting too. They have more money than you. They have the media to assist them in defaming you. And they completely misled the world to cover something tremendously bad. The treason of the coup that they were participating in to overthrow the republic. And with the Patriot Act, also, I'll go back to that one. This has allowed this type of behavior to become normalized. And I want everybody in America to think about this. This isn't a left or a right problem. You everyday you, just like us, you are a target. And if you do something, you misspeak, or something that they can fabricate on you, and you give them something that looks and appears like this, they will come after you next. And they can do it. And there's nothing evidently that we can do to stop it, because these creatures in Washington that are supposed to be our representatives are complicit in it. And they don't do anything basically to honor the Constitution truly, that's meaningful, and have allowed and like the system the way it is. So we really have to figure out how we're going to undo this problem.
You're 100% correct. The Patriot Act is probably one of the most unconstitutional pieces of legislation ever passed or written. It essentially usurps the Constitution away from the people behind closed doors. It is a major focus of WeTheJ6ers.com, because I believe now that the story isn't just January 6th. January 6th is over, but what happened to J6ers, what happened to their cases, what happened to them, this was all allowed to exist and to cultivate because of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act allowed this environment to fester. So I think it's our spiritual duty as J6ers to start exposing and teaching the American people how to understand what the Patriot Act really is. Because like you said, Peter, a lot of people don't understand. And the minute they start to, they're going to be appalled, just as appalled as we were. I think what Edward Snowden exposed is, with the PRISM and the NSA, it's just the tip of the iceberg. But that alone should have had everybody up in arms, about the situation with the Patriot Act. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. It is. And, I credit Snowden for a lot of things also, but see, the reality is a lot of his disclosure even too, just brought attention to it, because all he did was cite stuff that had already been, brought forth, but yet it wasn't covered. But because of the internet, they couldn't contain it. And then ultimately Julian Assange, we still, I wonder a lot why we haven't really, the administration, Trump's administration right now, presently hasn't brought him in and them have like a Senate hearing, or, at least pressure them to, because if you look at the data that he released, it wasn't an opinion. It was hardcore factual data.
It sure was.
It led to a lot of questions that we just simply never really thought about, but also it gave us a great deal of insight to a lot of things in the way these politicians and these supposed leaders carry themselves and conduct themselves in the public and privately, which again is the famous, Hillary Clinton thing, the public and the private, what you say publicly and privately. But there are so many things that we have because of the internet and because of podcast and because of the journalism, and just, I call it guerrilla journalism, but they give you data, facts. Catherine Austin Fitts is great. There was a gentleman that just did a show with Tucker Carlson, and he broke down the NGOs, and it was a 2-hour program, but the amount of data that he put out there and the way he speaks and breaks it down is any American could understand it, but it fills in so many gaps and ties everything together. Both of them are really good as far as how they present things, but they tell you about how things are broken. The Patriot Act is always at the heart of it, it seems. It was almost like the final nail in the coffin for us. And what was crazy is we asked for it. We begged and pleaded for it because of the fear and the anger and the emotional distress that we were in. We unified, and then ultimately we played right into the hands of the most tyrannical institution and this rogue group of individuals that had very nefarious intent. And we basically lost our republic for the most part and gave it to them on a platter. And it's really sickening because January 6th ultimately was the blueprint of what is to come in the future. And again, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. What they will portray you as is exactly what they want. And then they will stick you in a cave or a hole. They will bury you. They will do everything to destroy you. And they will get everyone to believe something that is completely made up, and it's an illusion. It's so scary to really be a part of the history and to have firsthand knowledge, like what we saw and what we information and the amount of information eventually that we got, so we could really piece together what they were covering up, and actually how crazy January 6th truly is. And it left me with far more answers than I ever expected. It really, there was so much going on, and there was so many bad actors that it's like, you think you have an idea, and then you see something else. The bomber, the person that's still running free, that somebody seems to be protecting, maneuvered all over Washington, D.C., and didn't manage to get seen on one camera or to be followed to a vehicle. Like, there's so much that doesn't make sense. And then at that point, even, why didn't they shut the event down? Because you would think that's logical, right? And it didn't happen. And but again, the stripping of it with the Patriot Act, and the way that they came down and then basically a character assassinated us all so they could push a narrative. That was just the blueprint. It's just the beginning. It's going to get wild.
I agree.
It's going to get real wild.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I want peace. I want prosperity. I want the pursuit of happiness, but I'm not a doom and gloomer. I want to be optimistic about life in the future. But for me, it's that we watched everything they did to Donald Trump. All right. I mean, everything from trying to unalive the man to freaking the witch trials, the trials, everything. They're not going to stop now. They're not just going to give up and let him win. I mean, and if left to his own, he's going to win. That's what he does. So it is a little scary. And to go back to what you were saying about them creating the narrative as they charge you, and then pretty much creating the story and all that around you. That's what they mean when you hear this the saying, we can indict a ham sandwich. That's what they mean, that they could put a ham sandwich in front of a grand jury, and the prosecutor, because of the language in the law, exacerbated by the Patriot Act, can tell a story to this grand jury, and they don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what they're saying is true. They can, behind closed doors, tell a story about this ham sandwich that makes it seem like the devil himself, and a grand jury will indict that ham sandwich. That's what Peter is talking about, how the law is such that the prosecution can turn you into a terrorist, a drug dealer, a monster, and then parade you on stand and have you treated as such and charged as such, even though in some cases, and maybe even a lot of cases, that's not true.
Yeah. It's really crazy too, because if you think about it, the lawfare that was used, and people need to really look into the lawfare. That's what's allowed a lot of the perversions, because of the Patriot Act and the indicting the ham sandwich. Like, I like that. That's true though, because here's the thing: that prosecutor, all that has to do when describing a ham sandwich, if it says a few factual things, say like your name, okay, and your address, and you drive a vehicle, well, that's factual. That's truth. That might be the only truth that was said in the whole entire thing, and everything was absolutely made up. But you are the person that they mentioned. You do drive that vehicle, and yes, that is your address. Mm-hmm. So if one person, oh yeah, you're guilty. It's really that nefarious. But see, like the ability for them to do that it shouldn't be allowed. I think that they should have to be sworn under oath also. And then the ramifications. But see, too, the judges have been allowed to issue eavesdropping and warrants to put people under investigation. And then what you find out also is these same judges are also the ones that were part of a lot of nefarious interactions because of the Patriot Act. And they do it behind closed doors. But to character assassinate, and say, like with Donald Trump, for instance, the man was elected president. So what do? They do a Russian hoax like deal. They completely fabricate it. An attorney basically falsifies a document. They have him dead to rights to start illegal wiretaps on the president of the United States. It was all under lies. We just now start finding out this information years later. And then they take the individual who gets caught lying. I think it's Kevin Clinesmith, I think was his name. Mm-hmm. And He admits to doing exactly that, which basically fueled the narrative that ended up basically destabilizing Donald Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
And they find him not guilty in court. The man admitted he did exactly that, but yet he's found innocent. So if you do the bidding of these nefarious individuals, the legalities and the lawfare will take care of you for doing their bidding. But yet
Right.
you as an innocent individual, they will throw to the wolves, destroy you, bankrupt you, and then absolutely a character assassinate you, and none of it be true. And you don't even get an apology. They don't care because we did it by the book. It's all legal. It's all acceptable. And it's just an absolute perversion, the court systems. And what we have today is kangaroo courts.
Oh yeah.
And it just imagine this. And I bet a lot of people actually going to actual prison. Once I did after my 40 months, and I basically got to go to court for it all to play out. Pled guilty ultimately, go to prison. I met a lot of political prisoners in prison that were innocent of what they were charged with. Ghost guns, ghost dope. We need some serious reforms.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that we're going to get it, unfortunately, from the politicians and unfortunately our government officials that are supposed to represent us in Washington. They're just incapable of it because they like the game the way that it is.
Yeah.
And I used to be a lot more doom and gloom. I'm optimistic in everything, but the reality to it is there's no peaceful way out of this problem. And the system is so broken that the patient and the way that the entire system is operating cannot be fixed with the current laws and structure, because they do not respect the Constitution. We do as people, but they don't honor it. They don't care about it. We really are not a republic. We are a democracy, and it's mob rule by the few, and the few are in Washington, and we are not the few.
Yeah, it's almost like that thing exists that what's Donald Trump always calling? Oh, the deep state. It's like it's a real thing or something. It's like there's these unelected bureaucrats that have been cronied and engaging in nepotism for many, many years inside the cesspool known as DC. And now their tentacles are so deep within the game that it's almost impossible to remove them. It's almost like a swamp or something there. Do you agree or?
No, I absolutely agree. But see, all right, so you could call it all kinds of different things I found, but I think it's called, I believe it's a continuity of government. It's actually, and they don't really talk about it openly. It does exist. Everybody knows it exists, but yet it's real tongue in cheek. Sure. They don't want to really dig into it, but the unelected bureaucrats and these NGOs, basically corporations that our tax dollars fund, they are being controlled by the intelligence apparatus, and there's no oversight. See, in able to fix what we have going on, we have to have true transparency. We have to have civilian transparency. And this notion of everything being hidden and it's top secret, it's ultra top secret, it's this, it's that. No, it's evil being done and hidden, and it's masqueraded under national security. And the reality to it is if we all have the same data and information, and you think about us as a massive think tank, and everybody knows that we're all on the same page, we wouldn't allow our funding and our tax dollars to go basically blow up women, children, and elderly people for the profiteers of the military-industrial complex or certain corporations, which again seem to always benefit at the war, bomb machine. The Lindsey Grahams, these wicked individuals that always there's never enough war for them. They always want more money. It's just these little things like that. But transparency ends all that nonsense. And the other thing is the immunities they have. If we get the transparency and we strip them of the immunity, but also we take away the federal, the foreign funding and the corporate funding, we could solve probably a lot of this stuff. But they don't. A lot of these things they won't even allow to be on the floor or in a bill because of say like APEC funding. I only want people that are beholden to the United States and the American people's interest. I don't want a corporation or a foreign government of any sorts donating anything to these individuals or being allowed to legally fund them. so their bank accounts grow because they put the interest of something else before us. You're either American interest always, or you don't belong in in politics or as a leader or the voice of the American people in the Constitution. That's to me, it's real simple. Transparency, though, they hate it because they're evil and they don't like to be in the light. And we've got to literally have more transparency through everything. And we don't. Civilian oversight isn't mandatory. It needs to happen.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. National security has been a code word for government cover up, and it is what it is. And I think until we finally demand transparency and actually demand it and stick to our guns, no pun intended, you're right. You're not going to see change because it's like the body cam for a police officer argument. Most police officers want them because most police officers are decent people trying to do their job and keep our streets safe. Some of them are not. And those are the ones that don't want the body cam because they don't want to be seen when they're on the job. And I think it's parallel to what you were just saying, is that all these bureaucrats and institutions and Department of Justice branches that don't want transparency. Well, there's a reason for it. They're the cockroach in the dark garage that don't want the light on.
Yeah. I like the body. Again, you bring like the body. See, again, as a person who's never been in government and a person who I've been a problem solver my whole life. I look at ways to make things simple and always to try to be very fair in my thinking, but also I like to fix things. I like to see productive things done. I do outreach. I do as much as I can because it makes me feel good, and I like to help and I like to see people succeed and to thrive. I'm a flawed individual. Yeah. I'm just like anyone else, but with the body cams. So what you do is you strip the secrecy away by doing something simply like this. Okay. A civilian oversight. The only access to the body cams is some kind of entity or group that are not linked to government of any sort, completely, a third party. And they're chosen by the people, kind of like jury duty or something like that. But you can, let's say, like vote them in like you would like a city council, right? And that body cam footage is always being monitored and always safe house. Once they basically turn it on, they go to work, they cannot shut it off. It rolls all the time. There's no, that way you don't just get like a snippet. You truly get to see the entire interaction. And the police can't hide because they've been afforded the ability to control the evidence and the data and to hide. So when they do something that's in error or wrong, and it's not nefarious all the time in the intent, but because they don't like the optics and it might prove otherwise. You take the ability of that, and that's open, that's very open source like, and it eliminates that secrecy. And then also like the courtrooms, Barry, you go into a courtroom, they don't want recording devices and they don't want cameras. You ask yourself, why is that? Well, yeah. I hate to say it. It's like that because they don't want you to see the corruption in the game that they're playing. They don't like the light and they don't want the evidence of them, again, violating the Constitution and their oaths to be, decent, morally and ethical people. So we need to get those back on, and that should be streamed literally like C-SPAN is all the time. And those cameras should be rolling constantly. You would not see a lot of the behaviors that a lot of these prosecutors have and the lying under oath by officers and all that. It would change the culture of the public servant. And it would hold them to a higher standard and accountability. And then also the fact that we aren't punishing these individuals when they do make that mistake because they were given authority and they're supposed to be leaders. When they make an error, they're supposed to be penalized harder and a lot harsher because the power that they were given in trust, they're supposed to be the ones made examples of, kind of like the prisons, right? And again, I'm thinking like just from a nobody, these are just thoughts, right? And over the years, and I've heard people talking, but prisons are built for rapists and murderers. Okay, that's it. The most egregious crimes committed. Okay, what we're using our prisons for is not that. Most of the people that are in prison are in there for ghost guns or ghost dope. I want to see politicians and leaders who violate the constitutional oaths and stuff in with those rapers and those murderers. Not a person who literally is destroying themselves with alcohol or drugs. They should be rehabilitated. But the prisoners in the prisons and the jails should be corrupt senators, House members, these politicians, again, that violate everything that they're supposed to, be at the very top character and the best of. When they violate the law, that's where they go. And we're not seeing any of that. Washington would probably lose half the people that sit in it right now because the amount of corruption that they're guilty of, and it continues to when I say this, I mean like this. They're the sexual deviant, the constant sexual harassment that they're covering up, the amount of tax dollars that we basically are sending them, and then they're paying off all these people to keep it quiet. And the courts know it. No police agency will arrest them, but yet we'll go after people like January 6ers who walked around and were being escorted by law enforcement to look at the Capitol and call them domestic terrorists. But yet you got literally these people in Washington that are paying hush money to true criminal acts. And, they wear a suit and they're being protected by law enforcement, all that. It's crazy. There's no openness, but I throw those ideas out there because I thought about them over the years and I've heard people talk. That right there is transparency. We need civilian transparency and oversight, open sourcing, and various things like that.
I've never thought about this, and I think this is a brilliant idea. And what came up for me when you were talking about this was, okay, yeah, sure, it'll eventually weed out the bad prosecutors and the corruption within the police department. That will happen, but what will ultimately happen is you're going to see a shift in the behavior from the public, because sooner or later you're going to have nothing but, for the most part, very good men and women in law enforcement, because they know the bad ones know the consequences. And the only thing that you're going to see from these webcam videos is how egregiously inappropriate some behavior is from the public here in America. And I think that over time, people are going to be more on their P's and Q's, because essentially you're just going to create one giant world star platform of people acting like fucking animals, and how bad and what it's like for an actual officer to be on the job every day. And I think you might see a huge shift in the dynamic of the behavior of the public. This is a genius idea, Peter. I love it.
Yeah, and you would. But here's the thing too that I think about but the judges will be held accountable for their rulings. It will change the culture and the behavior of the person that is supposed to be the highest of ethics and morality. Because what we have today are activists, very dangerous ones that will literally they look good and nice and they're evil, and their rulings have undermined morality, and really they protect. We would see the corruption that they're responsible for. And again, people would really see the kangaroo courts that we have, because it's the truth. And not all of them are bad, but the ones in Washington, D.C. are the most corrupt on earth. They're evil. They are they absolutely have a disdain for the American people, and they hate the Constitution. They are not in any capacity. And this is what I've witnessed, and what these judges called us domestic terrorists, okay, and then would not recuse themselves after literally giving that soundbite in open court. And we were to believe that we stood a chance of getting a fair anything.
Yeah, this is before trial. This is before you've had your trial.
This is literally just a hearing to be introduced to the judge, and yet ethically they violated literally everything that they swear an oath to. And yet we couldn't even get those judges recused that would say that type of stuff. This is what we're dealing with. And there's no accountability for that corruption that is Washington. Washington is the most broken, backwards place. You have, 13 miles? How big is Washington? Do you know?
Yeah, 13, 17, something like that.
It's okay. So it's very small. You go to Washington, D.C., and you walk around and you're just like, look at all the money that they spent here, and it's clean. You exit literally the little country of Washington, and you get to see where the normal folk are, and it's like a bomb zone. It's literally like you were in a war zone in a third world country, in absolute poverty. There's a lack of education, but yet you go back into that little radius, and it's the epicenter of democracy in the world. It's night and day. It's like being in a complete different world, and it is the most evilest and corrupt, but yet it looks clean, but it's filth. It's absolute filth. And they have a disdain even for the look. Exit it and look around, and you'll see it. It's so sad.
Yeah.
To know that this is normalized and acceptable.
Yeah, I think it's almost symbolic of how the actual American government really is. You know, they polished and pretty on the outside, but in the inside, it's pretty ugly. And I will say that you are right, that there is something going on in DC with as far as the ideology there, and the consistency of and the hatred towards America. I mean, look, it votes not what 96-98% Democrat. It's almost got the same percentage as the conviction rating from the Department of Justice. It's extremely weird what's going on there. And I mean, and I I don't know if this is the right way to coin it, but you take a look at the gangster culture. Okay, America has a gangster culture. I'm not very proud of it. It's actually getting quite annoying to me personally, but I digress. But you look at even the DC gangster culture, the DC jail inmates are different than the rest of the nation. Like, they promote homosexuality within their groups, and it's different than the rest of the rap, hip hop, urban culture throughout America. It's its own thing. Did you notice that? Do you know what I mean?
I do, because I'm going to tell you like this, and I'll throw this little story out there, and I don't mean to be offensive, because this is the realities of it, and it's not pretty, No. So I left DC and I go to Philadelphia on my way to federal prison. So I got to go to Philadelphia, and I'm on the ground there, and I meet a lot of individuals. There's probably like 160 individuals in my pod, predominantly minority Black, very little Caucasian, I guess you could say. And I'm a minority. So I say this as an individual, this from the outside looking in, but most people would consider me Caucasian. Okay. I'm an American. That's the way that I look at myself and view myself. I don't really care to water people down, but because ultimately that's what people have been trained and taught in America. So the men that I'm around are from from Philadelphia, all over, and various other states. Whenever we show up and there's individuals from DC, they're easy to identify by the way they carry themselves, and even in the gang-like culture and activities. Okay, so for the DC guys, they aren't really liked, and it's specifically because when they go to an institution or go somewhere, if they get into a fight and they win, it's almost expected of them to sodomize the person that lost. And it's a badge of honor, but yet they don't consider themselves a homosexual. Now, again, to each his own, but it's little things like that that separates, for some reason, the norms of the DC life. And I've witnessed this. And to talk to inmates and individuals who have been in prisons all over the world, all over the United States, and they have they've witnessed the same behaviors. So there is, and it's acceptable. And it's really, again, had I not witnessed it, I would have never thought about something like that or believed it, but this is what happens, and this is normal.
Yeah.
And so I ask individuals from DC even, why is it acceptable and to do that behavior like that? And they're like, oh, we're not gay. And it's again, like I'm in a different reality. And it's hard to believe that this is reality and real.
Well, they sleep with each other too. They'll openly sleep with each other too.
Right.
You'll get these two badass gangster dudes that the other day, one of them just stabbed the other one, and they're in there sleeping with each other in their cells. Like, it's weird, man. It is a strange thing.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to give you another one.
But my point real quick is that it goes along with this DC theme, this far left liberal idealism, this transgender freaking LGBT far left thought process that is even embedded in the DC gangster culture that for the most part are pretty apolitical.
Right. It is absolutely normalized, and it's because we didn't grow up there. We are outsiders, and for it seemed like, again, the majority of the individuals that I encountered and witnessed and saw, it's just normal for them. But for us, it shocks us to our core, and it goes against everything that we know is to be normal for us in our walk of life. But it goes along with also like this. I was shocked to know that a majority of people that go through the DC facility for detainment and the jail in general, they're the high 90s illiterate. That shocked me. The epicenter of democracy and the most powerful empire the world has ever seen, and monetarily wealthiest. The epicenter of this has probably the biggest illiteracy rate, and it's not talked about, and it's acceptable. And this is all at the hands of a group of individuals that claim and are the champions of the people. They have created this environment, and they keep getting elected by the same individuals that they're ruling over. But yet the party that has never really run or truly governs that area and the conditions are blamed for it. Like how have they been able to pull this sham off? And then you could take this and you can look across America and look at all the metropolitans and cities, and you're like, Democrats have been in power for 60 years here, but yet it's the Republicans' fault. How does that logically make sense to me, to anybody? And I won't vote for a Democrat or Republican, because to me, a turd's a turd. I don't want a turd sandwich, and I don't want turd soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And pick the lesser of the two evils. It's evil. I don't want to be a part of either one. I might support an individual, but will I vote for him? No, I won't. I won't vote for a Democrat or Republican. Why? Because they're treasonous to the Constitution, and they have disdain for the American people, and they have a disdain evidently for human life and human dignities, because they seem to always pay for the most wickedest, evilest acts in all the wars. Again, never enough for them. We have a problem with evil being acceptable by our politicians and our leadership, but yet they don't represent us. The American people are caring and giving. I don't care if you're on the left or you're on the right. If there's a national disaster, natural disaster anywhere in the world, the American people band together and they send money. They do whatever they can, and that's even the poor folks, because we literally want everyone to be prosperous and succeed. We have goals, we have aspirations. We just have a different approach to getting there, but we also have a different walk in life that we have encountered, which tends to help box us into a certain political gang, I guess you could say. And I think if ultimately we were open dialogue to the people that we are opposed to and the way we think, we might have a little more understanding, and we could probably find a lot more solutions. And the more people you engage and the more people you talk, the more you can find common ground and be empathetic. And then you find out ultimately you have more in common than you would have ever expected. And that's the beautiness of America, though. But we need to have more dialogue and be a little more understanding. But then there's times where, again, as men, we know sometimes brute force is the only way we learn. Yeah. And there's those individuals that you'll encounter. Unfortunately, that's what it takes. And that's a sad reality. And I hope that it doesn't lead to that. But sometimes I remember us growing up, we would punch each other in the nose, and then we like, this hurts. Oh, and then you'd get done and you'd wipe each other off, and now you found a friend, even though you didn't like them, but you had respect. You earned respect from each other like that. And today we don't allow that type of thing to happen. But now look at what we have rampant: people stabbing each other, people shooting each other because I got my feelings hurt. You hurt my feelings. Oh, it didn't do anything physically to me, but it hurt me mentally. We're weak, you know. But and I go on a little rant, and I apologize about that.
No,
but
that's
the
fine.
Realities to this is, it all goes back to this right here: the illusion that the people in Washington are good, and they're wholesome. And I've thought about it a lot too. I think that the person that probably goes there is not corrupt going there, but when they realize once they get there, if they want to stay there, they have to be.
If and you can't beat them, join them.
And that's what it comes down to, right? And this is because we're self-centered. They're not public servants. And then the other thing too, I think everybody can be at some point corrupted, and that's what we have. The whole system is built on corruption, right? Because we're flawed, we're broken. That's right. We're easily.
I want to go back real quick to something you just said that I find very interesting. You said that you hope and you believe that having talks across the aisle and sitting down for dialogue and speaking just to citizens one-on-one, because you believe that there's a inner goodness on both the right and the left, proven by that when a disaster happens, our ability to come together and support one another, putting politics completely aside. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
You know what I took by that? Sound like a fucking domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I've ever heard one, I had Ethan Nordine on here from the Proud Boys the other day, and he was talking about how one of his biggest concerns is being able to legally get his Second Amendment right back, because he's commuted, not pardoned. And it's another example, a clear domestic terrorist who wants to legally be able to obtain a firearm in accordance with the U.S. law. That sounds like a guy we need to really be worried about here.
Yeah, here's what all right. So it's funny, on the Second Amendment in this, right? So I don't understand how we've allowed the system, and as much as, again, if we believe in the Constitution, and
I don't even know what you're going to say, but the answer is Democrats.
That's funny. Well, never underestimate that the agreements that are made on the Republican side of the aisle to help the Democrats and everything that they do.
100%. You're absolutely right. And never stop bringing that up either, because you're 100% right.
I can't. I always say it like, for me, I look at what's going on and I see what's being done, and then I'm just like, I know that the person that thinks different than me is completely the opposite of what I am. I don't blame that. I can't fix that. The only thing that I think I can fix is my own tent, my own camp, my own house. Get it in order. We need to focus on getting our house in order first, and then start doing other things, but try to do things that unify. Now, on the gun thing, all right, it's simply like this. And this is the way I look, because I'm a free speech absolutist. You should be able to say whatever you want, but always understand there are consequences, right? But at least people know where you're at, and it makes it easier to you don't have to watch what you say or anything like that, but it's better that way, I think. But for the guns, I don't necessarily believe that just because you're a felon, you shouldn't be able to have firearms. Where in the Constitution does it say excluding felons?
It specifically says shall not be infringed. It's the only one that does.
You see what I'm saying? This notion that we've allowed these creatures,
Democrats,
these creatures in Washington to again, this proves the disdain that these creatures have for our country.
Yes.
And then the people, the gun. I don't understand for the life of me why Democrats are so hell-bent. And it's not really, I say Democrats, I hate to box them all in, but the reality to it is if they were to take all the firearms away from everybody here, we would absolutely, it'd be undeniable, be reigned and ruled by tyranny. They couldn't call it democracy. It would be what, totalitarianism? Is that right, Barry? We would be literally ruled by the most evilest, and there's nothing we can do to prevent it from happening. And then also the firearm in general, you're getting robbed. You wake up. What are you going to call the police and hope they get there so they can put down that individual? No, see, you can't eliminate it. And then you have a lot of people like us in the South. We hunt for our food. We don't need to have permits. It's God given to us. Our rights are. That's not for any institution to take away. I think that the biggest issue with the gun stuff is the education. We aren't educating and training people and talking about it and being inclusive enough for individuals. I know that I've seen a lot of individuals that were on the Democratic side of the aisle. They call themselves Democrats. They call themselves liberals. You take them to a firing range, say like women in general, A woman instructor, you have her introduce them to it, they love it. Once I don't know what it is about firing a gun, but it just gives you this feeling of just absolute, it's like a flood of emotions. There's no fear after some point. They grow to enjoy it, respect it. They go through gun safety. A lot of these people that are committing crimes are whack jobs.
Yeah,
they're mentally deranged.
There's that aspect, and then you got, in the urban communities, your gun training is a Tupac CD, or whatever it is these days these kids listen to. But that's where they get their training, and
yeah,
it is sad.
I think it really, and I look and I think the data's out there, so much of it, but a lot of the school shootings or a lot of these again deranged lunatics, they've never been through a gun safety course. Okay, they're deranged, but they're also on probably some, more than likely from what I'm gathering, and it's out there a lot, but they're on some kind of medication that makes you either depressed or it's supposed to help you from being depressed, but some kind of pharmaceutical substance, and it seems to be a common thing. But they don't want to talk about it, and we're not allowed to talk about it, but there's something there.
Well, I'll tell you right now, and it's very interesting. I've done some digging on that subject a little while ago, and you can even furthermore in prison. And what you find is a lot of these. So when one of these tragic school shootings happening, I think it's like 99% of them, if not 100%, that you find that the shooter was on psychotropic medication. Every single one of these news agencies that are supposed to be reporting on this in the mainstream media, one of their biggest advertiser clients are usually Pfizer or one of the major medical companies that these psychotropic medications come from. And they'll pull their advertisement contracts if they go ahead and bash their chemicals that are causing this shit. So that's where the conundrum that the mainstream media won't do it, because it's, once again, follow the money. That's where the money's at.
Yeah. In Pfizer, this company that existed back during World War II and it's still allowed to operate. These people are evil. They've now, don't get me wrong. They occasionally do create something that is very helpful, but almost everything that they put out causes you 4 or 5 side effects. So you're going to fix one. You're going to help cope. Yeah. Not cure, but cope and help and assist on someone's irritations or problem. But you're going to cause 4, 5, 6 other ones. So you're going to need to have this. And I mean, it's shameful. The fact that we're not allowed to really have the data and to speak openly about it because of the money in the lobbyist forum and all that it's sickening. And the fact that there's no transparency on the human testing and all that, you're best not to be on any kind of medication just in general. I don't take medicine very often. I don't take Tylenol or aspirin or anything like that. And whenever I have blood work, and I'm overweight, I'm a little overweight, a little hefty and stuff. I do indulge in eating too much, but I'm healthy as a horse, as they say. And when they hear that I'm not on any kind of medications and stuff, they're just like, how? You don't take any? And I'm like, no, But
well, before we get far off that topic, because you brought it up, when this interview is over, I would like you to email me or text me the dill pickle fish cake sauce from jail recipe. Because I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, I do look for. I haven't made one thing from the inside. Yeah, since I've been out. And that recipe, that was great. It is amazing at the creativity that we could come up with just to make that stuff that we call it. It's hard. You can't call it food, really. Because they wouldn't be allowed to serve anybody in a school that, because it's inhumane. Yeah, it's just poison. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. But it was crazy too to consider that we were putting all them that extra commissary stuff in our bellies and stuff just so we could have calories. Yeah. Because we weren't actually given anything that had any kind of value to us. Again, the norms of say like the food. There's no way in heck that we should be allowed to treat human beings like that. And again, I say that you couldn't serve the food that they are giving inmates to elementary school students or junior high students or high school students and get away with it. It would be, people would go ballistic because it has no nutrition. It's salt-based and it's bread. You hardly ever get any actual real meat. I think the whole time that I was detained, I can only think of twice where I actually had meat that you could tell was from an animal.
Yeah. That's
Um,
one thing. It's Lewisburg. We ate good. They took
yeah,
care of us there, and we had like I think Super Bowl. They gave us chicken wings and steak and shit like that.
yeah,
That was never to be seen again the
yeah.
entire time.
It's insane. I think it's Thanksgiving pretty much. That's it. That's when you have the possibility of getting a real piece of meat. It's only that one
Yeah.
instance usually. Well, unless you're on some kind of special dietary
Yeah.
or religious, with
Good luck.
those are the
Good luck
exceptions.
getting that.
Yeah, you better sign up for that on the front end. But the moment you get processed at the very first place you go, but most people don't think that they're going to be a criminal, or
Yeah.
going to do something to get them, thrown in the pokey.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this. Let's go to that day. Let's go to January 6th. For Peter Stager, what was it for you that that turned the tides that day? What did you witness as far as the behavior from Capitol Police that pretty much just, said, you enough was enough, or your opinion about that that day changed and you realized that this isn't what you came here for, whatever that may be? What did you witness Capitol Police do that day that stood out to you?
Okay, so for me, it was simply when I started going down to the Capitol after President Trump said peacefully and patriotically, uh, and that he would join us. Basically, I was getting ready to head out, but I thought, okay, we're going to get a caveat. So I start making my way down, and then I'm hearing these booms, boom, boom, and I'm like, somebody bring a cannon to kind of like the cannons you shoot when someone scores a touchdown, at a football game. And I heard it, and I thought, I'm going to keep walking, and I keep walking, and I'm marching with the CCP group of Chinese that become American citizens that are anti-CCP, and there's like 150 of them. Great people, love America. But so we're making our way down, and all of a sudden, I start getting this, this feeling in my throat, and my chest is getting a little tight, and I'm like, man. And then I'm hearing it more and more, boom, 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 boom. And I start looking around, and I'm like, I've got to get somewhere high so I can see what's going on, because something's going on. And then I start basically seeing smoke grenades, the smoke rolling off of those. And then the next thing I know, I'm really having a hard time, and I'm nowhere anywhere, and I don't see anyone doing anything that looks out of line. And I realize the police are literally throwing percussion grenades and smoke grenades and tear gas and into the crowd, and they are literally causing people to panic and get hurt. And I'm like, this is not right. This is absolutely what is wrong with them? What are they doing? And I'm still now I'm somewhere I can actually see at a higher climb the scaffolding basically, and I'm watching and I'm looking. And again, I'm not seeing anyone do anything to provoke this behavior, but I also realize that a lot of them they appear to be restrained, and it's just a small group, a segment of them that are doing this, but they're kind of throwing these munitions, and then they're kind of like running behind, and kind of staying in the backdrop. And I don't think a lot of the police that were in the front were realizing this was going on, but they were catching people who were angry and were telling, stop, why are you doing this? And things like that. And then all of a sudden you start seeing people get real angry. You hear someone announce that they just shot and killed a child, a girl inside the building. And then all of a sudden the police intensify their actions. And now you got people basically bleeding from the head, individuals literally that are just being brutalized. It was like open season on people. And again, I didn't see the fact that people were doing anything to deserve what was going on. And I'm sitting here witnessing people who are doing nothing more than standing around singing, national, songs, and they're baffled and shocked, but they definitely don't deserve it because they're not doing anything. They're nowhere even remotely close to doing anything or being a threat, but yet they're being punished. And, so I'm angry, about that. And then I start handing basically water out. And then things escalate. Basically, they get a lot worse because, once you've endured being maced, gassed, flashbanged, shot with pepper balls, You kick in a hornet's nest, and people get fed up with it. But to see the elderly, the women, and the children who are literally doing nothing more than what me and you were doing, speaking, talking, and standing around, be brutalized by the people that are supposed to defend you. It completely went against everything, and I was just in shock. And then all of a sudden, now I'm seeing there actually being this massive brawl, law enforcement just uncorking on people that are not a threat to them, that are doing absolutely nothing but occupying space, be brutalized, and then getting maced for doing nothing more than helping people who are literally being piled on top of each other, 2, 3, 4, 5 people high, and screaming, "Help them! These are your brothers and sisters. These are Americans." I just got wrapped up and broke because I realized ultimately that people were going to die, and basically before it was all said and done, it ended up Lila Morris beating Roseanne Boylan to death, and the crowd just went apoplectic. You get people like Maccabee. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of us that were helping people. We got pulled into something that we never expected. We didn't plan. It was just pure adrenaline, and we were disoriented, and we just lashed out. We didn't run. We didn't retreat. We just acted. And unfortunately, that primitive side of you, it's there. And when you break someone down as much as like I was, and some individual was, you tend to do things, and a lot of people would be like, "I can't believe you would do that." Well, it wasn't planned. But when you see individuals losing their lives for doing absolutely nothing, you can put your tail between your legs and go home. You can shoot videos of it, or you can do something. Right. And I promise you, if your loved ones were being brutalized, you better hope to God there was men and women around that have the character of January 6ers, because we won't bend the knee. We will not die on our knees. We will literally stand up no matter what the cost is for what we believe, because we fear God. We don't fear law that man creates in tyranny. I promise you, though, we need this come to Jesus moment in this country. We need to literally get active. We have got to start cleaning our communities up, but mainly cleaning our households up. Look in the mirror and truly address things. I'm thankful for going to prison. I'm thankful for the solitary confinement at this point, because it forced me to address things that I simply was too weak to do. I was very thankful for being able to suffer with the group of men that I suffered with, because we shouldered it together. Otherwise, I would have probably broken and become a very, wicked individual because of the anger and just the mental breakdown that probably would have followed. But I believe that we had the hand of God on us because of the prayers from the American people, and the quality of men that I got to meet during this, during the I don't even know how to really describe it at this point, but during my
the
kidnapping, the kidnapping that basically that was put forth and that we had to endure. I look for the optimistics and the positive things of it, but it helped me to be a better human being. And I thought I was a pretty good human being, but I was weak. I'm no longer that. I confronted a lot of things. I lost everything. I just went through a divorce, unfortunately, from a woman that I was married to for 20 years. It cost me everything, but I endangered my household, my children. She didn't sign up for it. She's a great woman. She was very supportive to this very day. She's very supportive, but she didn't sign up for it. And ultimately, our family unraveled. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. So it was very difficult, but it forced me to address me and to focus on me. And I healed. And ultimately, I believe that America has got to address that person in the mirror and overcome that. And maybe then we can start to unite and then start putting petty nonsense aside, and we could actually address the wicked evilness that comes out of Washington. And we do that by simply getting our house in order, and then also by running for local offices. We need to start taking back our communities one at a time. It's going to be a process, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we need to basically get back to caring about who your neighbor is and putting aside the differences and having difficult conversations. We need to be able to do that. We don't do that any longer. So we end up with some extremely radical stuff that individuals that become very hateful, and they get funded by, NGOs and stuff like that. But there's a lot of good things that are going to come for it. I feel like we have an obligation as January 6ers because we were on the front lines of tyranny. And we're very lucky that we got pardoned. Thank you again, President Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimately, but a majority of the men and women that went through this whole ordeal have a new respect for liberty and freedom, and we still don't have the proper representation. We we don't have very many friends, I guess you could say, that are willing to truly go to bat for us in Washington. But we know one thing: Donald Trump went to bat for us.
Oh, yeah.
And for that, I'm thankful.
Yeah, definitely. We have one champion, and he is in the highest seat of power as far as the executive branch is concerned. Just a minute ago that you went off on this whole thing about unity and sitting down to talk and loving your neighbor. I just couldn't help but think, man, that fucking terrorist. We need a whole prison for these people.
I'm telling you. I want to say a third of the individuals, Barry, that we encountered and that I got to meet, and I spoke to as many of them as I could, were first responders.
Yeah.
They were firefighters, they were ambulance individuals, people worked in hospitals, people that worked in government, people that wore the uniform, military and law enforcement. And it's hard for me to even believe at all that they could get away with calling us domestic terrorists, when the reality is this small group of individuals that got wrapped up in January 6th have done so much loving and caring and have been so beneficial to the communities and their families around them, and just individuals. Now, again, everybody's flawed. We know that. We don't run from that. We all make mistakes, and we all, again, have some days where we wake up on the wrong side and we do some things that we're not proud of. But a bulk of our work that we have led and done as human beings is so positive, but yet that was never, ever entertained, told, portrayed. And we were just painted as insurrectionist terrorists. And about half the population, I don't think it's really half. I'm going to say probably about 20% of the population or less believe it to be absolutely so.
Yeah.
But we would fight for you and disagree with you for your rights. But you want to paint us as literally Nazis or something else. And I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a white supremacist. I call bad behavior out when I see it. And that could come from any shade of color, And I made a comment yesterday. My children are Americans, okay? Mexican, Japanese, Caucasians of all variety. That's what's in their blood. But for me to be portrayed as like a white nationalist, like I was a Klan member or something, is it's crazy. But that's what they portrayed us as. I murdered a law enforcement officer. I killed police. We're responsible for the death of police.
Yeah, I've heard somebody told me that before, that I'm a cop killer. I'm like,
yeah. And I'm just like, you people have no
idea. I did not get that email.
Yeah, they killed 4 unarmed Americans. Let's look at the facts. 0 police officers murdered. 4 unarmed Americans murdered. Not one person has been held accountable that wore a uniform.
Or one city has not burned down.
And again, even the cities burning down and stuff. You take it. It was most of this, you could follow the money, and you could see NGOs that were backing individuals that were in leadership that caused these things to go down, but yet they're not deemed terrorist organizations. It's easy to follow the money, but yet they refuse to. The Open Society Foundation sponsors a lot of this openly. We've got it firsthand from individuals that their legal teams were paid for by this Cancer on Humanity organization.
Yep.
That work hand in hand with Washington, D.C., Republicans and Democrats taking money alike, maybe from a different spinoff of this cancer that is literally enslaving mankind and spreading death and destruction everywhere and perversions. I mean, this isn't by accident, people. Wake up. They don't care about you. You were being used. And I hate to admit it, but I was a useful idiot on January 6th because I played right into it, just like many other people, because of loving and caring individuals and just simply not being, I wasn't educated enough and wise enough to really see that they caused us to react, and they triggered us. They triggered a lot of us because we could not get over the fact of certain boundaries and lines that we would never cross. They crossed those, and it cost us to snap. And that was not accidental. I think that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. I know they were targeting people online, and they were following them and getting into chats and putting ideas into their heads so they would go. So they found people throughout the United States. They put themselves in areas and online, communicated with them, and convinced them basically however they could. So they set those individuals up. And then when they get to Washington, they literally gang stalked them and surrounded them. And then those people egged them to do things and caused them in hysteria, because mob-like mentality is a real psychological thing. There's books written about it. And they caused some really good people to see and to do things that they probably wouldn't have done if it hadn't been egged on. And now we know there was 26 actual people in our own authority, what would you call it, apparatus, who were truly there the whole time, which now makes sense why they were pulling people out of evidence to secure indictments on some of us, because they didn't want the person to be seen in the evidence. They did this to me, and they did it to a lot of individuals, and then they altered video. So they cooked up, tampered evidence and presented it and got grand juries to indict us. I mean, that's criminal. People need to be in prison for this. We have the law for it. None of that's being addressed. We're in a mess, and the only way that we're going to get ourselves out of this mess, though, is to unify and to sit down and have those town halls in these think tanks, and to put, again, the petty stuff aside and address the main issue that has plagued humanity, and that's Washington. We've got to get together and get this figured out. It's our only hope.
Well, I think we're on the right path, but I want to see more of and we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen. People that are more apolitical, on the fence, moderates, even Democrats, from all these fractionalized identity politic communities that the Marxist has spent so long fractionalizing, are starting to wake up as individuals and see that there's something weird here, and that maybe this America First agenda is not what they've been told. But I think, to your point, I think that in order to get to that point, we need to see more people wash this psychosis and hypnotism that they've been under, of hating America, hating the country, and buying into this Marxist ideology. We need to see more of these people rise up to come onto our side. So the people that are still left are outnumbered and embarrassed to be. It's much like what you saw with the KKK. You're not going to see any of those shitbags walk around with their uniforms on, because the shame that they're going to get is going to be immense. And we need to see the same thing reciprocated to these Marxist far leftist, where they're just not comfortable with these extreme ideologies anymore, and they keep their fucking opinions to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I like this. All right. So I look at like the Marxists, right? And these, we'll call it Antifa likes, these absolute anarchists, libertarians, really, but not scared to literally fight because they despise. We think a lot of people, and I used to think and believe it like this, is why are they so against me? They're not against us as individuals. What they are is they're so angered by the representation of the establishment. Mm-hmm. And the news media has convinced us that they're after us. No, they're not. They despise the Democratic policy. That's who they hate. But yet the media spins it, and it makes them they give you information in a narrative that is not actual the truth on it. They don't fight for the Democrats. They despise them, but the Democrats fund them because they're useful idiots. And again, I throw that term out there because I'm guilty of being a useful idiot. So I think I'm more than earned the right to say that. And it does pain me, but it's a reality. And we need to be factual, and we need to be brutally honest with each other and with ourselves, especially, because that's the thing. We lie to ourselves, and it makes it easier to be a slime ball and to not really see the bigger picture.
Sure.
So it's kind of like this right here. And I mean it. That's how Donald Trump, destroyed the Republican establishment. I call him the pineapple. Why? Because he's a grenade. He blew it up. And a vote for Donald Trump meant fuck the establishment. And that's what he is. He's the biggest double finger that we've ever done to the establishment. It doesn't matter what party you're in, because when you look at his body of work and everything, he was a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. He donated to mainly Democrats.
He was Chuck Schumer's first campaign donation of $500.
Do you see? I mean, the realities of the nonsense that they put out now, they don't match. What they're saying is all an illusion. The man's not a racist. Yeah, he says things that can be interpreted as that and are distasteful, but the man is not a racist. A racist is ignorance. Absolutely. He's not an ignorant man. He says things, again, because he's human and we're flawed, that you may not, agree with.
He's an American racist,
but
he wants the American race to do good, no matter what color you are.
Right. And he goes after people that go after him, and he doesn't lay off or back off. And I don't blame him. But what Donald Trump has actually done is unified. And he'll never get credit for it. And I say this, again, as an individual who literally supported Bernie Sanders. I wouldn't have voted for him. I supported him because he told the truth of what he was, a socialist. And America won't elect a socialist. They just won't. We're a constitutional Republican thought and hope, at least. And we're not ready for that. But at least he told the truth of what he was. The rest of them are just liars. But Donald Trump brought over gays, lesbians, minorities, specifically the Dreamers, who have been lied to by Democrats and have always been using them as a pawn for nothing more than votes, and have never delivered anything. They've lied for 40 years to these Dreamers, that do deserve, some of them, to be American citizens, or most of them. If you're born here, that's a tough one, but they've not done anything that they said they were going to do for them. They left the party. And then you had people who said, you know what, you guys, I've been a liberal my whole life, but you guys are so far out of touch. And they voted for Donald Trump. He unified more in his tenure, and they don't want to talk about it. The reason he got the monster vote was because the people were just simply fed up, and they didn't identify him truly as, they knew he was not a Republican. They literally watched him slay the best that the Republican Party had. What was it, 16 of them?
Yeah. 16
of these lifetime politicians. He just massacred them. And that's why I call him the pineapple. You never saw it coming. I didn't. Yeah. And then he pulled the upset that we were told. Hillary Clinton, 98% chance of winning.
Yeah.
98. Yeah. He slaughtered her. And I was in disbelief. I couldn't fathom the Clinton machine literally lost.
I know. I mean, that's a hater or lover. That's a tough opponent, man.
The Clintons don't lose, except for to Donald Trump.
Yep. I could say that sentence a million times. It'll never get old.
That's right. And that was the first time, and I will say this, politically in my life, and I didn't even vote for him. I voted for Jill Stein. I voted for a Jewish woman, because I believed her policies, and she was more likely to do, to help and benefit the American people. And also because she wasn't a Democrat or Republican.
Right.
So again, I say this from the outside looking in. They still won't address that those facts happen, but he has unified more. And then you look at the news and you look at what's being printed in paper, and they talk about he's a racist, he's a divisive, he's divided. No, you people are.
Yeah.
For literally gaslighting us with your propagandist garbage.
Communism 101. Whatever you're guilty of, blame the other side first.
Yeah, but even now, if you look at the right, they realize finally that Fox News has always been, undermining everything, because Fox News doesn't care for people on the right or the Republicans.
No.
They don't. They
No,
have a
they're just
globalist
a
like
spoke in the
agenda.
wheel. Yeah.
You know, all they are basically is the opposite side of the coin to keep division stoked. That's it, nothing more. And what you see today is with the transparency and the openness of the internet, and like Elon Musk taking over X or Twitter, you know, and all that. You're seeing less censorship, and because of the less censorship, they cannot stop the fire hydrant of information that is literally flooding us. You know, and it is actually been more beneficial to waking people up, so to say, to the realities of the horrors that Washington is responsible for, and the undermining of our Constitution and the stripping away of our civil liberties. Okay, it is amazing, and they cannot stop that hydrant that has been opened, and there's so much flying at us that it's overwhelming. But the legacy media is dead. Just like these politicians, these lifelong politicians that keep dying off, but have been in politics for 40 and 50 years, you know, why are we being held responsible for the sins of our grandparents and our great grandparents? Because these old, I don't know, I'm going to call them soulless corpses that refuse to leave because of the schemes, rackets, and scams that they literally have set up to enrich a group of small group globally. The whole system is being propped up on fraud. You know, it's really disgusting and disturbing. But our tax dollars are not being spent where they're supposed to be here in America. Look at our infrastructure. Look at the roads. You know, we've literally been lied to and deceived. All of us. I don't care what walk of life you are, you know, you're from. But the reality to it is we're all victims of tyranny. And we're and again, they tell us it's democracy. It's democracy. Well, it's not. It's supposed to be a constitutional republic. Yeah. So they've been telling us for years. We just haven't been paying attention and listening. And you can clearly see we're not. The fight is going to be huge. We've got to start mobilizing. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to people you disagree with. Listen to people who you don't agree with, because you might see an angle or something completely different and pivot. Don't just block yourself in and just be thick-headed and think that you know all the answers and have all of them, because you will be surprised by actually some of these individuals that you encounter that you are really similar in a lot of things. You just grew up in a different walk, you know, and have different life experiences, but ultimately your end goals are identical. And then you will build an ally that is you can truly rely on and depend on. And at worst, you could eat dinner and have a good debate. You know, friendly debate. But that's how you open the doors and you change things, and we heal. And it's not going to be easy, you know. But I would tell people, get uncomfortable, fight like hell for the liberty and the freedoms that we are given by God. Get off your knees, America, and fight.
Yep, I can't say it better myself, Mr. Stager. So if I'm gonna leave, we're gonna close it out here, and I want to give you the last word. If there's anything to tell the American people about January 6th in its entirety that you feel is the most important thing for them to know, something that you feel that they might have been misled on, what would that be?
The biggest thing that I'm going to take away that really gets me is they want you to believe. Now, optically and everything, you can look at the crowds and you'll come to whatever determination that you want. But there was walks, like all walks of life there, like every type of different colored skin, nationality. There were people from all over the world that were in Washington, D.C. that day. But, you know, they want you to think that there was nobody there. There was almost, I would estimate 900,000 to 1.3 million. And we know from the geofencing data from the cell phones that in a 24-hour window, there was, I think it was like 1.6, close to a million people in Washington, D.C. So the fact that they've been able to lie and to keep that out of the media and out of the papers and the TVs and the visuals and the videos and like all the information flow speaks volumes to how powerful the powers that be are. And again, when you look at the media and stuff, look at Fox News, look at all the right-winger news outlets, supposedly, they've never shown you an actual picture of the crowd when the exiting president of the United States gave his speech, because it would show that we were more unified in that moment than we've ever been in our lifetimes. And that's a fact. I witnessed it firsthand. And then the other thing is I'm thankful to know that there is, even if it's just a sliver of the numbers of people we have in this country that are willing to sacrifice their own lives for a stranger. Like, it gave me a great deal of hope looking back and knowing it now. But there is enough individuals that truly would sacrifice everything that they've ever loved, built, in their entire everything to help you. And never forget that. When you're in a crowd, there are individuals, even though you don't know them and you think you hate them, or they might be in the opposite spectrum, they fear God so much and they love so much that they would literally lose everything to help. And whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you. But I'm really I'm thankful for the individuals that sacrifice so much for the many. God bless America. It doesn't get more. The spirit of the America and the hope and the dream that I was taught and raised about, it's still alive. It's I may not recognize the country because of the perversions that are, but there's still a small group of individuals that are public servants at heart and truly believe in the the American way. So I'm thankful in that. But the deception is crazy at the way January 6th was portrayed. We'll write that, though. The history will remember it different, but the problem with it is the victors write the history. We have to overcome the filth in Washington to be the victors, so the people get the truth. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, Peter, I appreciate you doing this interview. Our whole point is to collectively make some content, produce content, so the American public that may be on the fence, maybe have a negative opinion about January 6ers, can at least see from their own words and their own opinions who they are, and hopefully we can undo and rewind the dangerous and false narrative that the J6ers were domestic terrorists, because that is something that I can't live with. And not only can I not live with it done to us, I don't want it to ever be done to anybody else in the future, no matter what side of the political spectrum that they may be on. So I do appreciate you joining us, man. Is there anywhere people can go to follow your work, anything you're doing, anything you're up to?
Usually I don't really do a great deal. I'm just now really starting to get out and talk, as far as on podcasts and stuff like that. I think I'll be a little more active in that, but not yet. I will be in the future. We are, me and Ronnie Sandlin are writing a book. We've been working on it for quite some years at this point. We should be getting close to getting it wrapped up and hopefully out. It's going to be open source, transparency. It's going to be a very interesting book and a different way to see things from, January 6ers and people that have been, literally leaned on the hardest by the federal government. But it's going to be very interesting. So I'd like, I throw that out there, but we'll have more data on that. I would also tell people like this, get out and do something in your communities, get active. Don't be scared to do the right thing, because people will follow you. People are always watching and they will emulate what they see. So do that. And do something that you might not feel comfortable with. Just interact with someone who thinks different, Be the change, as Cash Kelly would say.
There you go. Get out of those.
Hey, thank you for having me.
No worries, man. Thanks for being here. Get out of those echo chambers. There's a lot of things out there that will help you articulate your points better just by having conversations with people that see things differently. And when they blow up and they go crazy, and you're able to keep your cool, it makes for some really cool content. So keep that in mind. Peter Steger, man, love you, brother. God bless you. It was good to serve in the fire with you and be fortunate, man. And look forward to seeing you in person again and talking to you soon, brother.
Absolutely. I'll be down in Miami soon, actually, probably this week.
Well, then you definitely,
I'll look you
better
up.
hit me. All right. You got it,
love
man.
you guys. God bless America.
God bless you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Peter Steger with WeTheJ6ers.com. As you see, we are trying to give a platform to the men and women involved in January 6th, so you can see who they are yourselves versus the mainstream narrative that was pushed on them by the likes of MSNBC and CNN and ABC and all of these sorry excuses for media that we have here in America. So thank you for tuning in. Check out the website, WeTheJ6ers.com. If you have a conservative group or a Republican group across the nation that would like to have a historical opportunity to book one of our live speakers to not only tell you about their plights and their stories, but to help you understand the Patriot Act and how we can work as citizens to end it in the future, because the Patriot Act is the most unconstitutional piece of legislation ever passed in U.S. history, and it must end. So God bless you all. WeTheJ6ers.com on all platforms, including X at WeTheJ6ers. Give us a follow, share, like, subscribe. We can't do it without you. We're already fighting the censorship battle. The algorithms are not going to amplify our voices, so we rely on we the people to promote We the J6ers. God bless you all. Have a good day.